This is Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Kof Samach Vav, and once again we like to dedicate all of this Chus HaTorah for an incredible Chus Rafua Shlema for Tinok Miriam Ahuva. We should continue seeing improvements as this Chus HaTorah, which of course knows no bounds, should Emirta Hashem bring Tinok Miriam Ahuva a complete Rafua Shlema. We are holding on Kuf Samachem and Beis at the Mishnah as we continue the halachas of shtaros, and now we're going to get involved in what happens when we have a shtar that different points in the shtar conflict each other. Let's get to it. Says the Mishnah, Kasav ba'izuzin meya de'inon slayin esrin. Someone writes in the document, someone borrowed 100 zuz, which is 20 slayim. Ein loy ella asara zuzin. You only have a claim, Ein loy ella esrin. He only has a claim to 20 slayim, which is worth 80 zuz. So his equation was off. But the halacha is, all you get is the lower amount. Continues the Mishnah. Zuzin meya de'inon tlasin slayin. Now what if you devalued it the other way? You said 100 zuz, which is 30 slayim. Again, remember, 100 zuz is going to be 25 slayim. What's the halacha? Ein loy ella mana. So in both cases, you're going to be getting the lower denomination. Kesef zuzin de'inon. If he continues, a new case, if the shtar says silver zuzin, which are v'nimchak, and then how many are there? De'inon, how many? And now the number is missing. Ein pachais mishtayim kesef slayim. He is no, ein pachais mishtayim. There's no less than 2. If you wrote kesef slayim de'inon, if you wrote silver slayim, not silver zuzin, again, there's 4 slayim to every zuz. So if you wrote silver zuzin v'nimchak, and then the number is erased, ein pachais mishtayim. There's no less than 2 slayim. Third of the similar cases, dar koinais te'inon v'nimchak. If the shtar says dar koinais, which are, and the number then is erased. Now dar koinais, explains the Rashbam, is a golden coin, and this is in Sefer Ezra in particular. And each dar coin is worth 2 slayim. 2 slayim. And again, every selah is 4 zuz. So if he writes, dar koinis inan v'nimchak, says the Mishnah, in bachs mishtayim, 2 dar koinis. And now the third and final part of the Mishnah, kasaba milmala mana. If in the top part of the shtar it says 100 zuz, but then umalmata matayim. In the lower portion it says 200 zuz. Milmala matayim milmata mana. Says the Mishnah, Hakol Hoylech Acharat Ha'achtoin. Ask the Mishnah if that is true in Kain Lamakaisin as Elyoin. Explains the Mishnah, Shem Tibcha Kois Achos Min HaTachtoin, Yelmad Min Elyoin. But the Iker is the Tachtoin. Why is the Elyoin there? In case that something is erased from the Tachtoin. We can learn it from the Elyoin. But there's going to be a clash. The Tachtoin will be the appropriate indicator. Says the Brisa, Tanu Rabbanan Amar Kesef. If the shtar says that there was silver, doesn't say anything else. Ein pachais mi dinar kesef. You have a claim no less than a silver dinar. Kesef dinarim. If the shtar says kesef dinarim, which are silver dinarim, v'dinarim kesef, or dinarim, which are silver, then the halacha, says the Mishnah, is ein bachais mishnei dinarim kasef. There's no less than 2 silver dinarim. Kasef dinarim. Now, finally, case number 3, if it says silver, kasef bidinarim. If it says silver in dinarim, then says the Mishnah, ein bachais mi bishnei dinarim dahav kasef. Then he has no claim less than 2 gold dinars worth of silver. Again, this last case is a little bit more intricate. Kesef bidinarim, silver in dinarim. Then says the Mishnah, the Brisa, excuse me, you have 2 golden dinars, but in their silver value, worth of silver. End of Brisa. Now, as Gemaras always do, we're going to dissect and analyze a bit deeper. Says the Gemara, Mar, Kesef ein bachais mi dinar kesef. What was case number 1? If you just write kesef stam, you get no less than a dinar kesef. Asks the Gemara, ve'ena nascha. Why don't we say that it means a nascha? Why don't we say that it means a piece of silver? Why are we saying that if he says just kesef, he gets a silver dinar? Maybe he just means a shtick, a little piece of kesef. Amar Rav Elazar, the kasef by matbeya. Says Rav Elazar, you know why? Because it says, it didn't mean it just says the word kesef. It means it says a kesef matbeya, a silver coin. Asks the Gemara, how do you know? How do you know that it means a silver coin? Ve'ima. Well, perhaps it means priti. Perhaps it means silver prutais, a smaller coin than a dinar. Amar Abba Basra de Losagi priti. Says Rabba, we're talking about a place where the Losagi priti kasba, that prutais of silver are not the currency. And therefore, if you say silver coin, what is that? That is a silver matbeya. That is a silver dinar and not priti. Continues the Gemara, 3 lines in the bottom, another brisa. Tanu Rabbanan, to have, very similar to the previous brisa, which went through ambiguous, unclear cases about silver. Says the brisa, if the star just said to have gold, ein pachais mi dinar dav, then he has no less than a golden dinar. If it says dahav dinarim, if it says a gold dinar or dinarim dahav, ein bachais mishnei dinarim. Continues, if it says dahav bid dinar, ein bachais mishnei dinarim dahav. Dahav bid dinarim, ein bachais mishnei dinarim kesef of dahav. The exact same 3 halachos, translating silver into gold. Amar Mar teaches the Gemara, to have ein pachais me dinar zav. If he says to have, it's no less than a golden dinar. Ask the Gemara, ema nascha. Maybe it means a piece of gold which is worth less than a golden dinar. Explains the Gemara, Amar Rav Elazar, no. Why not? De kosav matbeya. The reason is because it said in the shtar matbeya, a gold coin. It didn't just say again nachamol. It didn't just say dahav. It said dahav matbeya. It said a gold coin. And with that, we turn over to Kuf Samach Vav Amud Aleph. Continues the Gemara, the same exact sequence of questions that we asked about silver, we now ask and wonder about gold. Says the Gemara, Ve'ima, maybe it means priti, maybe it means gold prutais. Again, a smaller denomination. Answers the Gemara, priti didahava loi avdi inchi. People do not make golden dinarim. Answers the Gemara, priti didahava loi avdi inchi. People do not make prutais out of gold. Continues the Gemara. Zahav dinarim, the next case in the Brisa. What was the next case that he said? Zahav bidinarim, gold in dinarim. Says the Gemara, what was the din? In pachas b'shtei dinarim kasef. It's no less than 2 golden dinars worth in silver. Kasef zav, worth of gold. Says the Gemara, ve'ima dahava prichi. Maybe he was referring to fragments of gold betrayed dinrei dahava, were 2 gold dinarim, kamar, and maybe that's what he meant. So finally, after all the questions, Abaye comes along, and Abaye really gives us the underlying impetus for almost all of the halachas in the Mishnah. which is the Yad Bal Hashtar is Ala Tachtoina. Why? Because this follows the classical rule of Hamoitzi Mechaver all of Raya. The Bal Hashtar is trying to get money out of someone else. That person is muchzak on his cash, and therefore the halacha is that when you are being mitzi, you have the lower hand unless you have proof. And if it's ever going to be ambiguous, Yad Bal Hashtar al Tachtoina. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, a second teretz. Maybe there's another gerus over here, but classically we don't learn the parentheses. Says Rav Ashi, Reisha de Kosav Dinari. The Reisha is referring to where the Sefer wrote Dinrei. Dinrei means gold. Sefer de Kosav Dinarin. He's referring to where he says dinarim, which is silver. So says Abaye, there's a simple differentiation between the cases of the Reisha and the Seifa. And from there, we could tell what exactly was the kavana in the shtar. Asks the Gemara, how do you know that? How do you know that there's such a chilek between dinare, dinre, and dinarim? I'll explain you, Titania, because we learned in our Bryce. If a woman has upon her, she is unsure about 5 cases of leidais, and this is coming from the halacha that, as we'll see, she has to bring different karbanos. But the question is, was it a leida or was it a neifel or was it a miscarriage? Or case number 2. Safek Chamish Zivais. She has 5 cases. She's unsure if she was a Zava. So what is the halacha? Mevia karban echad. She's allowed to bring 1 karban, v'oicheles bizvachim, and eat karbanos. Ve'ena shar aleh chayva. And the remainder, the other 4 karbanos in which she was unsure whether there was an obligation, ein shar aleh chayva, there's no obligation. Case number 2 says the Brisa. If there was a definitive 5 leidais vadais or chamesh zivais vadais, then what's the halacha? Maybe a carbon echad and v'oicheles bizvachim. So an interesting nikuda. In both cases, she only has to bring 1 carbon. In both cases, she can eat v'oicheles bizvachim. But in the case of the suffix, what was the halacha? In shar aleh chayva. But in the case over here where it was a vadai, then of course, v'ashar aleha chayva. Then the remainder is a chayva, simply because she has 5 karbanos to bring. Continues the Mishnah. There was a story. The price of birds, the kinim, the pair of birds that you bring as a karban, both for a leida and for a zava, went up in price b'dinare zav, and it was worth a golden dinner. Amar Rashbag hamoyin hazeh. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, the moyin hazeh, by this house, literally, which is a lashain of a shvua, as the Rashbam, the lines at the bottom points out. Bebeis HaMikdash nishba. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, I make a shvua on the Beis HaMikdash. Im olin halayla. I will not sleep tonight at you binarim until the price of birds comes down for a dinarim. Nichnas lebezdin v'limeid. Rav Shimon Gamliel went into Bezdin and taught the following halacha. Ha'isha she'yolech chamesh leidos v'adois. Chamesh zivos v'adois. Says Rav Shimon Gamliel, mevi'ah karban echad v'ocheles. And guess what? Even though they're all of adois, ein shar aleh chayva. The remainder is not an obligation. And because with that one halach, Rav Shimon Gamliel came along and pottered up so many karbanos. Before we see what happened, we all could anticipate that the price is going to go down. But let's see for a moment the last Rashbam. He says, "Time with the Rav Shimon Rav Akiva Damri Yasam, Haimer al Achas v'tipatim mefarshas berakama." That one karban could include the obligation for multiple karbanos. So says Rav Shimon Gamliel, even though such a person really has 5 chiyuvim, you could be yotzei zayin with 1 carbon. What happened? Vamdu kinim boy b'yoyim. The Rav Asan Kinim went down and stood at the price of a quarter dinner. So from this brisa, what do we see? We see that dinrei referred to gold and dinarim referred to silver and went down in price, which was the chilik that Rav Ashi made. And therefore the Gemara proves that with this fascinating story. We continue on the top line of Kuf Samach Vav Amud Beis, says the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah, Kasa Milmala Mikasa Milmat. Said the Mishnah, the milmata, the bottom is the obligation, and the top is just there, that if there's something missing in the bottom, then you can look at the top. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon Yilamed Tachtain Mina El Yain. The Tachtain can learn from the El Yain. Yilamed Tachtain Mina El Yain Be'ois Achas, with 1 letter. That's the lashon of the Mishnah. Avoloi, but not B'shtei Ois. But we can't learn the 2 letters from the El Yain. Kigain explains in the Brisa, Chanan Mechanoni, if it's missing one. If it's missing the extra nun, va'anan me'anani, says the Gemara, that if you're not sure whom the person is, then from the top of the shtar, the extra yud could show us that what are we referring to, Chanan or Chanani, etc. But asks the Gemara, why? Why are you only able to learn 1 ois and not shtei ois? Telma mitrami shem ben arba ois. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because maybe we're going to find that there's a name with 4 ois, and he's going to write half of it, and he's going to write half of the name, and therefore that's not a normal mistake that we could assume the cipher made, leaving out half of the name, and therefore, says the Gemara, we can't learn 2 oisios. But if that's the reason, asks the Gemara, so then 1 letter as well. Maybe we should be concerned for the same issue. Maybe there was a name with 2 letters, and writing 1 letter is also writing only half a name. And it's not mistaver, it's not logical, it's not normal to assume that the cipher left out half of a name. So why, when it comes to 2 letters, could we not learn on 1 letter? We could. It should be the exact same problem. Concludes the Gemara, along with here we conclude, you know the reason that we can learn out 2 oisios from the top of the shtar, because maybe there's a name of 3 letters. And the rive of the name is missing, and therefore we can learn the rive of the name from the top, and that's why we only can learn 1 letter. And finally, 1 last case. Amar Rapapa, says Rapapa, Pshita li Safal Melmala. If it says Safal on top, Kefel Melmata, Hakola Lichachar Atachtin. But that's Pashit. But Rapapa Kafel Melmala Safal Melmata. On the flip side, my Michashin Lizvav Oiloi Teku, because we can understand that the difference is that in such a scenario, a Zvov could come, eat up the ink, and therefore make maybe the top version is correct, in which it said kafel. In fact, it says safel on the bottom. The zvov, the fly, ate up the bottom of the word. Are we worried about that? Says the Marateku. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.